What's going on, guys? TowerNumberNine here, and today I am continuing my Force 5 series where I'm playing at least 5 games with every leader in the new Jump to Lightspeed set. And today we have Captain Phasma Chrome Dome. Now, Phasma is a first order leader, and she's a very aggressive design as a whole. She deploys on 5 resources as a 4/6 and has on attack. If you played another first order card this phase, you may deal 1 damage to a unit. If you do, deal 1 damage to a base. Additionally, on her leader side, she can exhaust to deal 1 damage to a base if you played a first order card this phase. So this is in some ways similar to Sabine Wren, the classic aggro leader from set 1. I would say the key differences are Phasma's ability is not double-edged. You do not damage your own base when using it, but she is reliant on having played those first order cards. Which means that you need to build a trait synergy deck. You know, we've seen some Sabine decks that actually don't build around rebels as much with cards like Sundari Peacekeeper and so on. But Phasma is basically, if you're not playing first order trait synergy, Phasma is not probably going to be the leader for you. So you know, that is the breakdown there. I also think she had a very cool visual design overall. Phasma is very effective with the first order cards. Like I said earlier, it's like Sabine's ability, but safer. But you need to be playing first order cards to enable. And her leader side also requires first order cards to enable. Now, on that side, her ability is even stronger because you get to ping a unit and potentially the enemy base. This is really good because in a lot of situations, you can knock a shield off of somebody or even finish off an enemy unit while also damaging their base. It is a very strong leader ability, in my opinion, and it also comes with a very competitive 4/6 stat line on a 5 resource deploy, which is really solid stuff overall. But again, you need to be playing those first order cards, so this is kind of going to be a heavy trait synergy deck. And it was actually pretty easy for me to decide what aspect I was going to play when I was building this deck, because at present, almost every first order card in the game is either red or green. So, you know, it was going to be a command aggression deck. And you know, this first order stormtrooper I'm highlighting here is an example of one of the first order cards we got with this new set. Actually a quite good unit. So 1 for a 2/1 on attack, or when defeated, deal 1 indirect damage to a player. It's similar to the Death Star stormtrooper that we saw in the first set, a little weaker on the defense, and the fact that its damage is indirect sometimes allows opponents to get around it, but at the same time you get that extra value when defeated, and of course you enable your first order trait synergy. There are a few blue first order cards. I believe there is a new pilot who is first order and is blue, and then of course Supreme Leader Snoke is blue. But it seems to me like with the greater card pool available in green and the fact that Snoke isn't exactly an aggro card, it seemed like the aspect selection was pretty easy. Now this could change in the future. Maybe we're going to see some more first order cards from different aspects. Maybe they want part of the identity of first order to be a very aggression focused faction. I'm not really sure. We'll have to see what happens as future sets for this game come out. But as it stands, red green seem to be the order of the day. One little fun fact about the first order trait also is that Bazine Natal, despite having the subtitle spy for the first order, or whatever it is, informant for the first order, it does not actually have the first order trait. She is underworld. So that is a little fun fact there. No synergies with Phasma and Bazine. And so some of these first order units are actually really strong aggro options. So we talked about the first order stormtrooper. This Allegiant General Pride here is a really, really good card. So he is a 2-cost 2/3 aggression villainy first order official. When indirect damage is dealt to a unit, you may defeat a non-unique upgrade on it, and on attack, if you have the initiative, deal 2 indirect damage to a player. This guy is really, really good, especially if you are going first, because if you play this guy and then take the initiative, he's essentially swinging for 4. The indirect damage defeating non-unique upgrades doesn't come up that much, but he actually has a cool side benefit, which is that if your opponent plays bounties or something on your units, you can attack with him, choose to deal the indirect damage to yourself, since it says a player, it doesn't say an opponent, and put the indirect damage on your own unit to clear the bounty. Maybe a little bit of a niche scenario. And in this set, he is a little limited in the effect of his upgrade removal, since so many of the upgrades that people might be using are those pilots that are unique, and he does say a non-unique upgrade. So, you can get rid of a shield, you can get rid of experience. If someone plays, the hot shot deal 44 or a snapshot reflexes or something, you can clear that out. But you cannot clear out, Han Solo, the pilot, for instance. And then Kylo's TIE Silencer, one of the few cards with the first order trait from before this set. This one's a classic, 2 for 3/2. And the fact that you can play it if it was discarded from your hand or deck. In this build, there's no like way to do that proactively. But what it does allow you to do is if you get hit by like a forced throw or some other effect that's going to make you discard a card, you can discard Kylo's TIE and then play it anyway. And 2 for 3/2 in space is just a good aggressive stat line. So this is the overall build. I don't have a fully specified sideboard for this. And as you can see here, I was kind of cramming in as many first order cards as possible, almost. Not quite. There's a few that I'm not running. I notably am not running Kylo, but we went with the energy conversion lab here. And so we have a lot of starting first order plays. We have the first order stormtroopers, the first order ties, the tie that makes a tie token, the indoctrinated conscript, who's just a very basic pilot. But I actually had some success with him. It is worth noting that Phasma says if you played a first order card, it does not say a first order unit. So if you play the indoctrinated conscript as a pilot, it does trigger Phasma's ability. General Pride we already discussed. Hux buffs other first order cards and can be card draw, which is helpful to have because so many of the cards in this deck are cheap. And then we have several other things. There are 2 copies of Shoot Down in here to help with the early space combat that seems to be prevalent in this set. There are a lot of decks that want to develop space units early, and Shoot Down can help you win those engagements. Disabling Fang Fighter because there are so many pilots out there. The Sith Trooper is mostly there because he's first order, but his ability is kind of convenient. The TIE Dagger Vanguard actually surprised me, has been quite good, especially in situations where the opponent has maybe gotten an advantage in space early on. So, let's say you start with a special forces tie and your opponent is playing Kazuda and ambushes you with the fireball and uses the ability to not die. Well, next turn you can bring out the TIE Dagger Vanguard, clear out that fireball, and be in a better position in space. We have Von Rig's tie, again, mostly there for a first order card. Captain Phasma, who's really cool. We'll talk more about her later. Overwhelming Barrage, kind of a classic. We have Pilot Vader, who in this deck can be used both as a big powerful unit in the ground arena, especially with potential energy conversion lab to kill an opposing leader, but he can also be used as a pilot to just be an overall more aggressive play and cause a lot of problems for your opponent early in the game. And then we have Ruthless Raider to give the deck some reach and more of a top end. So overall, pretty straightforward strategy here. We're cramming in the first order units. We're cramming in kind of aggro cards. We do have Daring Raid in the sideboard in case we need a little bit of removal and reach, as well as another copy of Shoot Down for the more space-focused decks. There, unfortunately, are just not all that many first order cards, so I didn't go really in depth into building up a sideboard of stuff to swap in and out. But this deck was actually surprisingly effective. So I believe I played more than 5 games with this, and I actually won a substantial majority of them. I think I only lost 1 or 2. That being said, I do think it's a little limited because, quite frankly, not all the cards that the deck is playing are ones that I necessarily would want to play in an environment where I didn't need to have the first order trait. So like the Sith Trooper is a good example. I don't think the Sith Trooper is a garbage card, but I don't think the Sith Trooper is a card that I'm really excited about playing. Or the Kajimi Patrollers. There are a few cards in here where if there were other options available with the first order trait, the ones currently in the deck would probably be swapped out. And that is the main downside that I'm experiencing with Phasma, is that she does feel like the card pool is not quite there yet, but she does have some really cool plays. So like this one, Captain Phasma on my command, this is a really interesting unit because she's a 5-cost 5/6. When played or on attack, you may give another first order unit +2/+2 for this phase. So this works this works on a bunch of different stuff in this deck because the deck is so first order centric, and it also just has some really cool plays If you ambush Phasma with the Energy Conversion Lab, you get the when played and the on attack. It does say another, so you can't use her to buff herself, but you can use her to buff one of your other units potentially twice, or buff two different units. So you could give either +4/+4 to one unit or +2/2 to two different units. This can be really good. She's a good target for barrage. She can also buff another unit and then have that unit do the barrage. The first order trait synergy, super relevant. You can use her to buff the leader Phasma. So you can deploy leader Phasma, then play the unit Phasma buffing the leader version. And that also, because unit Phasma is a first order card, it enables leader Phasma's ability as well as giving her those bonus stats, which is pretty scary. And also Phasma just has decent stats for cost. And so 5 for a 5/6 is not terrible. Some decks will have difficulties dealing with that, and she does have some immediate board impact, assuming you have at least some other first order unit already on the board that she can buff up, preferably before it attacks. So overall, I think a pretty cool card. And Pilot Vader has also been really cool for this deck, in part because you can ECL him as a 7/7 and deal with most leaders, but also just sending him in as a pilot has been cool. But here are some other cards that didn't make the cut for this build that I think are very much worth considering. So Cham Syndulla here is a 4-cost 5/4. When played, if an opponent controls more resources than you may put the top card of your deck into play as a resource. So he is kind of a counter to Ramp and a counter to Han as well. This is really cool. He does not have the first order trait, which is unfortunate, but the 5/4 stat line is also good for setting up an overwhelming barrage. I think he might well be worth testing. We have Unit Kylo, who I discussed a bit earlier. This is from Shadows of the Galaxy. I unfortunately don't think that Unit Kylo is really all that good. I would probably rather be ambushing Pilot Vader compared to ambushing Kylo with ECL, unless my opponent had a unit with 8 HP, which is not very common. But Kylo does have the first order trait. So it's possible, maybe you're in a situation where Kylo can ambush just as well as Vader. And then with Kylo, he synergizes with some of your other first order synergy cards with Phasma herself and so on. So there is some argument for playing Kylo, but I think that overall I would rather have Pilot Vader, especially because Pilot Vader has that utility early in the game as a pilot. And then last but not least, we have the classic 7-cost Darth Vader commanding the First Legion. This is a really, really good card. Honestly, one of the best cards in the game and has been for a while. But I am currently playing this as a more aggressive deck, and I am not sure that he really fits in. I'm not sure that I even want to go up to 7 resources most games. So that's kind of the deal with Vader there. Certainly, he's a very good card, but I was hoping to be faster than that, if that makes sense. So yeah, the real question for me with Phasma is, what does the future hold for her? Because her leader card is very good. I was really impressed by her leader card. Both sides of it are quite strong in my opinion. Like if you're playing first order cards reliably, her leader side is like Sabine's ability without its downside. And then her leader unit side is just really, really good. A 4/6 stat line at 5 resources is a strong stat line, and her ability is very powerful. I had situations where I was attacking with her, killing one unit with her ping and doing bonus damage to the base. It's just really, really relevant. And however, she is limited by that card pool, and that is the issue that I was running into. There aren't that many first order cards to choose from right now, so I felt sort of pigeonholed into playing green red. I felt like even a lot of the unit decisions were kind of being made for me. But we're probably going to get more first order cards in the future. I think Phasma is going to get scarier. I also think that rotation is not going to affect her all that much because the first 3 sets have barely any first order cards. Yes, you'll lose Kylo's TIE Silencer. That's a good card, but I have a feeling that you're going to gain more from future sets than you will lose once rotation hits. So especially if we see more aggressive first order cards, I think Phasma is really one to watch. I think she could be very powerful in future sets. I think that I don't know lore-wise whether there are characters from the comics or other things that would fit this, but if she gets some good early Force units, that might really help her build, in my opinion. Maybe some of those like Sith acolytes from the 3rd movie or something, or the 3rd of the new sequel movies. But I was thinking, I'm already playing Vader. You could easily play Kylo. You could potentially play multiple versions of Vader. If there were some early Force units from First Order, you could add to this deck with things like Force Throw, Force Lightning, some of those other cards. Force Lightning in particular, I think has secretly always been a good card and is limited by its lack of enablers, but I could see it being very strong in the future. We'll have to see what happens, but overall, I enjoyed playing with Phasma. I don't think she's quite there yet, because even though I was doing pretty well with her, it didn't feel like it was the strongest thing ever, in part because I was just playing some cards that I don't think are at the level I would normally want for a constructed deck. But as we see more First Order cards, that evaluation might change. So yeah, that's my take on Captain Phasma. What do you guys think? Do you think I've missed something important and she's actually quite competitive as it stands? Do you think I'm crazy and she'll never be good? I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this later. And yeah, that's gonna do it for this one, guys. We will be back later with some more Star Wars Unlimited content, including more of these Force 5 videos as I look at more of the leaders in this really exciting set. I'm really liking Jump to Lightspeed. But yeah, I will catch you guys later.